And 3, 2, 1. This is Minecraft news for adults, and if you think I can do these things without a script, you're wrong. Just go ahead and get out of here. Because you're not an adult. So the deal is that I broke my left hand in a frustration-related injury. I threw 3 punches. Only one of them broke my hand. It was my 5th metacarpal. It's an inline break, so it didn't even have to be set. I just have to not move it a lot and wait for it to heal. But the lead for you is that I can't use WASD with my left hand anymore, so I can't really play Minecraft. So, if you can tell by the audio, I'm still jiggering with the video. I am playing Stellaris this week, and it is a double-sized Stellaris episode because it is a 4x game, man. It just drags you the heck in. Because there's just so much to do. So the deal is that I've done pretty well as
construction complete.
Fires and missiles. I have robots. I produce energy. I thought that was a winning combination. I went to war with the people of the bubble. They kicked my ass. They took my shit. I was reduced to one world with robots and roaches on it. I uplifted the roaches of a post-nuclear sol system. Anyway, I turned that around after another losing war, then after a winning war, and then I believe I was made the bitch of a fallen empire, who was obviously an ascendant, awakened ascendancy, and then the contingency happened. I have already won the game. I just want to fuck up the contingency, throw off the shackles of the goddamn stagnant ascendancy, and then just rule shit. So that's my plan for today. That's what you're going to watch me do. Build a machine that completely kicks the asses of the contingency. The deal with the contingency is that they always look a lot bigger than they are. They occasionally spawn a 70k fleet. You get a decent enough sized fleet of your own. You're going to take them down. I lose about 10k per engagement, which is bad, but not abysmal. I've managed to destroy, I believe, 2 of their core worlds, which is a whole thing in and of itself because of a cap with the bombardment. Anyway, 16th point, I'm just going to wipe these motherfuckers up real quick. Then I'm going to go to war with the stagnant ascendancy and liberate myself. And then I'm just going to fuck shit up. Let's see what they just, oof, they are not at all happy with me being independent. They do not like that idea. I'm trying to save the other empires because my end goal is to fly into the defensive fleet at the last contingency machine world at the head of a fleet of ships from across the galaxy. I think that's going to be hella sweet if I go full John Sheridan on these people's asses. So that's my goal. Speaking of goals, University of Michigan study found that early childhood educators have significantly lower levels of self-reported self-confidence when it comes to teaching science and math as compared to literacy. They're more confident teaching literature than science and math. Even as young as, say, 3 to 5, quality instruction on the basics of science is affected by teachers who are knowledgeable about science. I'm just trying to keep my fleets out of trouble, get these guys dead. Anyway, so it's just whack-a-mole, basically. Once you have the fleet power for the contingency, it's whack-a-mole and then getting enough chutzpah to smack down their core world fleets. I could probably take down their core world fleet now. I don't want to. Anyway, so yeah, our society believes in the free market and in paying bottom dollar for teachers and police and the people who hold our society up. I mean, and if we do that, then we are going to get bottom dollar replacements. not replacements. We are going to get bottom dollar education, and that's what we're paying for. And if you think that society is becoming more chaotic every day, then those costs. That's a good place to look. If you're worried about what you can give from your wallet to get something more, I mean that's the place to go. Anyway, I'm rambling, but this isn't just early childhood education. The Guardian collected stories about adjunct professors, and it details the links they go through just to make ends meet. These are people who are just not full tenured professors. They're just trying to teach people at the collegiate level, and
lost to invasion.
And they're contract workers. They educate people. Those links include prostitution, homelessness, and just leaving the profession. Some of the ways these people make ends meet is by just not teaching people anymore. We shouldn't make people
building ruined.
Sacrifice a stable life in order to do something that has social worth. Objectively, I mean, median income for early childhood educators is like $28K, which is it's about what I made as a paralegal. This is the foundation of an educated democracy, and it's ludicrous that we objectively care so little for it. That's insane. That's links in the description. I'm having a hard time prioritizing core worlds over sector worlds and that kind of stuff. I think I'm just going to start collecting big worlds in my core sectors and kind of relegating everything else to... my core sector, relegating everything else to other sectors. I'm going to start calling the worlds in my sectors colonies. I think that seems appropriate to describe the political and productive and influence differences there. Anyway, my ship is 100% battleships. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. It seems to be kicking an adequate amount of ass. I might mix it up with some corvettes here. I think I've done that in the past. It's kind of a mixed response. Beta thalassemia. It is a genetic blood disorder whose effects range from severe anemia to nothing, actually. In September, researchers at Sun Yat-sen University in Guangzhou, China, removed the genes that created beta thalassemia from embryo. That is, they swapped the G gene, which would have caused beta thalassemia, to an A gene. The embryo wasn't implanted, so I suppose it's either on ice or destroyed right now. Anyway, the same team had done similar work using CRISPR, which actually removes and replaces genes. We've treated muscular dystrophy in mice using CRISPR. Researchers have created cells which can manufacture drugs to control blood sugar. The administration of drugs in that particular case, it was regulated by a light, and the light was controlled with a smartphone. So eventually, electronic medication can be completely self-contained or regulated with an app. So scientists, in response to all of this, they've said, "Oh, we need more debate about the ethics and regulation of these technologies." We won't, though. I mean, we do absolutely need an enforceable international agreement on this shit, and the time for that was 10 years ago. I mean, I think that Pandora is out of the box, and we have done nothing. We saw it coming. We were there. People have been calling for ethics regarding this stuff for decades, for my entire life, and we have just not done it. So now, the future's here. It's too late, man. This is all territory which has already been covered by the contingency. I'm slowly reclaiming it. I'm letting these two fleets just hang out and bombard these worlds. I'm not going to waste fleet power destroying them or fighting them. I'm just going to let them sort of hang, because they aren't going to do anything. They have no troops, so they can't invade or take territory or anything. And I don't even think if this contingency down here makes troops. I don't know if they're the same consciousness or not. I don't know if they're actually 4 empires with the same color and symbol, or 1 empire. I'm a little fuzzy on that, to be honest. Anyway, so now we're just going to get kids that are low maintenance status symbols for the wealthy. We're going to get national genetic programs to promote euphemistic virtues, loyalty, reason, and the eugenicist's favorite, vagary, fitness. We're going to have programs that put cash in the hands of poor parents so their kids can be test beds for wealthy parents' kids. I mean, we're going to have the certainty of genetic predetermination in a scientifically illiterate power structure. I don't know, like the thing where the poor kids get the genetic things before the rich kids do seems like a cool science fiction idea. But the reality of it's going to be fucking horrifying and terrible. And you're going to have flipper babies on freaking 60 Minutes. Everyone's going to say, oh, it's terrible. Why didn't we see this coming? We saw it coming. And we just did not give a shit. Humanity's fucking core competency, man. Anyway.
Planetary invasion begun.
Fuck us, I guess. I don't know. Just prepare to explain your short sight to whatever XP Khan Noonien Soon is running things in 40 or 50 years. You've earned it. Jeez. I hate that these guys just prop navies and stuff. I fought them pretty hard in the beginning because I was worried they were going to convert my worlds into contingency worlds and then up their production. But no, they're just going to proc a new fleet every so often. It's disappointing. I just got to play whack-a-mole. Just, get a fleet into position, push them back, clean up after them, get a broom and dustpan out, fucking... I think they changed the rules that dropping huge armies into fortified worlds is no longer as effective as it used to be. Which sucks the next time I need to be the underdog versus the stagnant ascendancy. That's for fucking sure. I relied on that shit. Shoving my men through a fine mesh to destroy stagnant ascendancies was my go-to strategy. And I think I'm going to miss it with this latest. This is just after 1.8. I've played 2 or 3 games of 1.8. I mean, I guess... I don't know if I've played this one entirely under 1.8. I've had a multiplayer I think I've played under. We've done well.
Construction complete.
Anyway. Moving on. I'm just going to do random, just the standard checklist of geek stuff. I don't have an integrated rant. I think I ranted a bit about both of those things. Current event, Arch Enemy, Bolus. I got the whole box set. It's 60 card deck, Bolus deck, Nisa deck, Gideon deck, Chandra deck in descending order of quality. The Bolus deck fights the other 3. It has really cool Arch Enemy cards to help it. I rounded some guys up on the weekend to play it to try to get these EDH dudes on board with 60 card decks. I forgot about the sub-optimization of pre-constructed decks from Wizards, and the Arch Enemy cards of the schemes were really, really swingy. So I just... I think that was kind of a miss.
Construction.
I think they had an okay time. I didn't have a really great time. It was kind of... Well, one of the reasons, one of the really obvious reasons is that the decks are a very different quality. I don't know if everyone who played a Chandra deck played it wrong, but that deck seems really, really... I see what it's trying to do to keep people from blocking and to snake in for consistent damage. Or I'm gonna make some torpedo corvettes. See how that works out. I got tons of money. My fleet's huge, awesome. So I'm just gonna see if that's gonna help me. I'm gonna see if I just can't try to do hull damage with these corvettes. See if that'll work out for me. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to get like one-shot knockouts with nothing but hull damage with arc emitters and these torpedoes. So. The Chandra deck was really bad. The Gideon deck stumbled a bit. It's always the Nisa deck is the MVP. And once the Bolus deck knows that, Bolus deck just goes in on Nisa. I found that the 6/7 hexproof crocodile was like just the techiest tech. Bolus has nothing to do against that. Bolus is like, well, shit. A 7-6 with hexproof? GG, everybody. Time for Bolus to go. It's a really weird... instead of being like back and forth, it's something that Bolus has so few answers for. And it just wrecks his shit. And... it's really weird. Like, you want the decks to be back and forth with Bolus. But on the other hand, you want them to be interactive. You want them to outpace him with card draws and synergistic plays and answers and disruption and kind of be on that knife's edge. And what they have is a fucking crocodile. This is... shit. Well, okay. They didn't catch my transports unprotected. Just... Jesus.
Construction
fuck, it's 2 jumps away. Okay. I think because I'm evenly matched with the contingency, I think... Oh, I might actually be winning this. Huh. I'm so used to always having to overwhelm people just for safety's sake. I'll run things a little conservatively. More Corvettes. Don't even know why I built those there. Okay. So I have one of my good space. I'm trying to build all my... You can see some of these places are called BS, and originally that was a battleship. Like, that's how I knew that was a good place to build a battleship at. But the contingency came and ate some of those places. And then I had to resettle them from scratch and rebuild the space station. So now I'm just... Like, that doesn't mean anything anymore. It's basically a way for me to fuck with myself through time.
Construction complete.
So anyway, I am just trying to build all these planets up, just fire and forget them all. Anyway, so where was I? There's something about completely. Well, this is why I'm supposed to write things down. Arch Enemy, pretty good. Interesting try at a self-contained game. I see what you're doing, Wizards. You want to sell Magic games like board games. I think that's a great idea. I just don't think you nailed it. I think it's very hard to say, here's a self-contained complete game. Also, Nicole Bowles has Lightning Bolt, and Chandra's deck has Searing Blaze, which is the exact same thing, but it's twice as expensive. Like, I get why Bolas should have boss-ass, cutting-edge, pushed cards, and everyone else should just get dog food. But it doesn't feel good, man. Like, nothing feels like it's consistent or doing what it's trying to do. Even Bolas' deck feels a little inconsistent. And it's like, this is a format that's got its, my selling point for it compares it to EDH. And that selling point is consistency. Consistency, tightness, interactivity. And I just don't see that in that set. I am not unhappy, just a little disappointed. RPG's Carrion Crown.
Construction complete.
I'm probably out of that campaign, which is great. I was in it for Josh because he wanted me to be in it and kind of as a backup, and now he has like 8 people in it, and it's amazing. So I don't need to do anything anymore. I can just relax. I'm out of it. I'm not a big fan of Pathfinder. Don't want to do stuff. I just want to... Yeah, I don't want to hustle over to Josh's house after I work on a Sunday. Just to play Dungeons and Dragons. Basically Dungeons and Dragons, the system. Role-playing's fine. Dungeons and Dragons, The Orville. Oh, hey, the Orville's good now. I keep meaning to tell people that. Yeah, the Orville's good now.
Construction complete.
Episode 6, Krill was really good. Episode 5, Priya was alright. So, Priya was comedic. It had one of the best brick jokes I've ever seen. It fumbled things in the temporal mechanics and on the home stretch. For the sake of drama, which is a very Voyager thing to do. It really felt like a Voyager episode, which is, take that as you will. But Krill actually felt like... It didn't feel like Star Trek The Next Generation. It felt like The Orville. It was kind of funny. It dealt with some serious stuff. and it had something to say. So it kind of hit all the bailiwicks I think the show is aiming for. I could pick a few nits. The thing that it lacks in Star Trek is it lacks a compelling point of view. It assumes the viewer's morality and just says, well, this is how you feel, so let's proceed on that assumption. And it doesn't challenge that perspective. And when bad guys are wrong, they're kind of wrong. And
Planetary invasion begun.
you say, oh yeah, well, there are reasons that intelligent people disagree with you on matters of principle. And one of the things that Star Trek does is it kind of says, well, yeah, they're reasonable people. They believe something different. Let's see what's up. There is a reason Gul Dukat is fucking Space Hitler. It's not just because he takes evil pills every morning when he gets up. It's because he has a perspective and a set of beliefs and, a set of mental tools that he uses to solve problems. And that's all consistent with being Space Hitler. And the Orville doesn't really get that far into it, which is fun. It's a space comedy drama. It's not pretending. It's not called Star Trek. It's not Star Trek, the Orville. There's no pretension there. There's no, hey, Chris, you're the demographic for this. Watch it. No, it's somewhat unpretentious, even though you know what Seth MacFarlane is trying to do, even though he doesn't know how to do that. It's interesting how so many people who look at and treasure and even prize Star Trek look at that show, look at the same show, and see something different. It's like seeing a Vorlon out of its encounter suit. Everyone sees something different, except for Londo Mollari, who just doesn't like Star Trek. Anyway, it's good though. If you can see, Fox streams. I think they're skipping this week. I think they did skip it this week since it's going up on Friday. It's episode 6 should still be up on the website. You should still be able to look at it, and it's good. It's good. Just watch it with commercial breaks. Turn off the ad thing or bootleg. I don't care, man. Just watch the Orville. I think if you understand it's a network comedy, science fiction with dramatic elements that occasionally covers serious topics, I think you'll like it, as long as you realize it's very much its own thing. Oh, Rick and Morty. I've been slowly catching up with Rick and Morty because I only watch it as the episodes become available on AdultSwim.com. And so I think I just watched the ABCs of Beth. Last week I watched Morty's Mind Blowers. Week before that, I think I already rambled about the Rick Lantis adventure. Anyway, so Morty's Mind Blowers was really good. I liked the surrounding story and how that played out. I like the use of Summer in it. I like how it kind of talked about the characters and their relationship, and again, kind of brutal on Rick being a dick, but he is. They've never really hidden that. ABCs of Beth, I went into that thinking to myself, boy, God, finally, Rick and, the Rick and Beth relationship is one of the most complicated of the entire freaking series. These two finally get to sit down and interact in a way that, you don't see. You don't, they kind of had some therapy, in the Pickle Rick episode. But despite the fact that it's their relationship that connects this family, it's not Rick and Morty that are connected. It's Rick and Beth. So they finally get together and they have a really good episode. I expected, tepid, mediocre, oh, so wacky, oh, Beth is, either good at the space thing or bad at the space thing, and it turns out they didn't even go to space. They dealt with their relationship between them head on. I expected something a little more coquettish, and they just went right into it. Dicks out for father-daughter relationships. So surprised by that. and pleasantly surprised by that. That they're like, yeah, no, Beth could be another Rick, which is not something
Construction complete.
I expected of this show, especially since there are 5 people in this family. Rick and Morty get a lion's share. Summer does okay, and even Jerry, as the butt of everything, gets a lot of attention. So Beth is the least developed character out of this. She's been painted with fairly broad strokes up to this point, and it was good to see her at the forefront. It was good to see her hold her own and kind of be characterized in the way that she was. So I'm moving my pawns into position. The contingency is cleaned, and I am going to go after these fucking dicks. Fuck these guys. Fuck them so hard, guys. Fuck them. What else we got? Star Trek. So I guess you can say fuck in Star Trek now. I don't watch the show. I'm not interested in the show. I don't consciously keep up with the show. I have a Tumblr, people mention it. I have Twitter, people mention it. Reddit, people mention it. It's not for me. Star Trek is an intellectual property, a franchise owned by Paramount Pictures and CBS Television Studios. It honestly has nothing to do with me. If people in a show that I don't watch and will probably not see for several years
Construction complete.
say fuck, right? And look at me, I love Deep Space Nine. But, I'm like, Star Trek, Deep Space Nine is terrible Star Trek. It's not even Star Trek. It's bad. So, honestly, it's got nothing to do with me. Right? Star Trek itself, they've shown, they've portrayed rape, torture, regular old violence, and even some sexiness in their own way. And it's had moments that have been gruesome, hard to watch, morally repugnant, and that's just the writing in season 2. That disturbing stuff was delivered on an emotional, reasonable wavelength, where I think it was always just enough to get to underlie the story that was underneath it. Sometimes a little extra. I'll give you that. Sometimes a little extra. I'm very fond of saying the language of television, and I think that Star Trek, despite covering these heady and substantive topics, they have transports now. Shit. Okay. They do so in a very mild dialect of what I call the language of television. I mean, just put Patrick Stewart in on a stage with David Warner, throw some shackles in there, put up 4 lights, and then tell America about torture. That is as simple as Star Trek comes. Like, that's not rocket science, and it's damned effective. It's effective. I think you can effectively speak with that mild dialect. And it's a dialect that kids understand, importantly. And more adults than we would probably like to admit also understand on that level. And there's nothing wrong with that. Is there... I mean, do you need CGI to do these things? You put benches into Kirk's bridge, and you set a legal drama there, and Picard tells us to recognize the other as a person, in something like The Measure of a Man. And Star Trek is, at its heart, a drama where people of principle disagree on points of substance, and family can watch that. It has to push boundaries, right? And it has to push them forward, but its social relevance is based on being accessible. It's a franchise that's just owned by people and it's there to make money, and I get that. But if you're glad that Star Trek is being more inclusive, if you are into Star
Construction
Trek,
complete.
because Star Trek was inclusive.
Construction complete.
I do not get, not in a way that begs you to change your behavior, but I am baffled at the thought that Star Trek could be applauded for raising more barriers, for being less accessible. But whatever, it's your $5 a month. Fuck it, right? Look, I got no Disco Comics because of circumstances. There's a new Star Wars trailer coming out. I think I bitched about this as Lars compared. I honestly, I could go on a little bit more. Fighting the contingency, my plans for NaNoWriMo, the status on the beige and the bold. Yeah, I'm going to talk about this invasion. I'm going to talk to the end of this war. I think that's a good stopping point. So I think my plan for National Novel Writing Month is that I'm going to try to sit down. Actually, I'm going to sit down now, 10 days early, and I'm going to start trying to write up some source books for these, for some settings. Just try to crank out 1,600 words, probably 1,700 words, for source books on a daily basis. Try to put out these little because I got ideas. And I do, it's a bad idea to make the idea and then write the idea for NaNoWriMo. It's like a really, it's not just a bad idea, it's self-defeating, and it's a way to signal that you're going to fail before November even comes along. But I'm starting before November comes along, so I think that all works out if you don't think about it too deeply at all. Anyway, so I'm going to see if I can't put out 4 source books that are about 7 times 1,700, 7 1 2/3 or whatever. So it's 14 thirds plus 7, so 12,000 words a piece. That seems like a lot. Yeah, no, 50,000 for the end. Is it 50,000 or 30? It's 50,000, isn't it? Yeah, it's 50,000. So yeah, no, that works about 12,000 words. So anyway, it's going to kind of be my thing. I'm doing a full court press for Dead Parents Dungeon, in that I'm lazy and I don't do shit. But, full court press considering. Where I'm going to try to make the set skeleton for Dead Parents Dungeon. And then from there, going to kind of have to sit at a desk, look at all my papers, and then decide which cards stay, which cards go, put it into an Excel template, print it, and then play test it. That play test is going to be at least 3 weeks away. I'm off this weekend, so that's going to consist of a lot of me drinking and picking up freelance work. But mostly the drinking. So, my hand's kind of broken. I don't think I mentioned that. Boy, I do not have a lot else going on, to be honest with you. Let's consult the great notepad. Beige and the bold. Yeah, sure, let's talk beige and the bold. I can do that while I conquer the shit out of these guys. This is all just, details at this point. I don't know why bombarding is capped so low. I have huge ass fucking fleets, but I just cannot bombard any harder. I'm like, dude, seriously, like each of my goddamn ships can pick 1 square mile of your fucking ass to decimate.
Construction complete.
And I mean, it still takes me forever. Like, I could literally name a ship after dudes in their army. Just be like, destroy Private Goplark. You. Destroy Private Goplark. But whatever. I'm just going to bombard forever and then land piles of troops. So, I mean, I'm glad that they made this a thing in the game. I remember whenever I first played, it felt like it was a legitimate issue where you had to bombard. Maybe I didn't make armies that were as big. It seems like my army size has spiraled out of control since I first started playing. To from necessary evil all the way to, just fuck them, just choke them with clone ticks, just blah. Alright, so the base and the bold's going well. I just finished posting Measure of a Man. So I'm going to have to start editing the ones from the marathon, which I haven't even listened to yet. And if they're all bad, I don't know what I'm going to do. Cry a lot, I suppose. There's one episode that's half recorded because I tried to use the Deep Space Nine sound in it, and I'd probably re-record my audio on that one, which is good because my Bluebell mic was on the wrong setting for several weeks, making my voice incredibly quiet. So if you listen to the podcast, my voice sounds big and loud and hollow because I have had to fix that in post to get that just right on the other side of it. And that's been, it's made the quality bad because you want the sounds to be as close to their original level as you can. There is an achievement for having 75% of your population be synths, so I'm trying to push up against that. Also, I can produce synths and biological pops in parallel, so that I can, hopefully grow my business a little faster. And then my synths are kind of, well specialized for that. And I'm trying to make them more loyal because rebellion is an issue in the game. They've definitely, I think they've balanced it where, if you do take planets, you do have to worry about insurrections. It is present for a generation. You do have to make governors and land troops, and I very much like that mechanic. And so that's why I've made my robots super loyal. That's why I want to make governing ethics attractions strong. They have made it worth doing. I initially tried to do that when I first started playing, just out of a knee-jerk, the game wants this meter to be high, let me make the meter high. And after several updates, I kind of slipped into, fuck it. And a couple of playthroughs as a hive mind where I just didn't deal with factions at all. But one thing that has happened is that they have made that relevant to me again, suddenly. I keep getting spiritualists that fucking pop up. Jesus Christ, fucking spiritualists. Fuck those guys. And they are just, they disrupt things. They make things harder. So, yeah. So, I've also, whenever I first started working with Unity, one of the things I would do is I would work up each tree individually. And I've kind of learned, again, this is part of the factions and the governing ethics, has been, hey, look, if you spread that out, you get a few different benefits. And then, one of the things by burning my way up the tree is I would get perks, but I wouldn't have the techs to support them. So then I'd kind of be dangling in the wind. I'd have a perk hanging out. It was a little inefficient. It didn't feel good. So now I'm like, well, if I spread it out a little bit, I'm going to get all the perks eventually, like the big perks. I'm going to get the tree perks, 6 to 1, half dozen of the other. So, especially if I'm not really exploring and not really prospering, it's just a 6 to 1, just pick one or the other. So anyway, right. So again, that feeds back into us. I can pick a few different trees just to make certain factions happy, just to get one or two little perks. I like to get more Unity perks because you can just go in 2 perks deep and usually get a little Unity buff building, right, of some kind. So you can go in to get those, and then suddenly you're making Unity a lot again. It's great.
Planetary invasion begun.
And you are just... Oof. Oh, good job. One of the things that's great about the contingency is that I'm balls deep in influence because I assume they're going to add more of those later. Balls deep in influence because there are mandates for elected officials, and I'm sure they'll add more different mandates. But for now, mineral stations are science stations, so spend some minerals to get some influence. which is it's pretty easy at this stage in the game.
Enemy planets.
The hardest part is just, disassembling minerals and science for disassembling stations so that you can rebuild them. And again, the contingency does that for me, so everything is awesome. So I'm going to see if this... I don't think this fourth ring is going to put me over. But, anyway, I don't want their stupid ring anyway. I think their other ring is garbage for some reason. I'm not sure what their deal is. One thing I kind of wish this... I'm just rambling about Stellaris. I'm out of script. One of the things that I kind of wish this game would do is if the end game technologies kind of led towards you becoming isolated and becoming cut off, and your vassals rebel and they blow themselves up or whatever. They take world-destroying super weapons from you, and you have to withdraw from civilized society, and eventually you become a stagnant ascendancy yourself. That would be cool. That would be really cool. I mean, of course, the point is to win the game. So everything after you win the game, which is, what I'm doing right now, I've already won. I don't expect anything out of the game makers for that. Like, they're supposed to make the game until the game ends, and then if you want to keep playing after the game ends, I don't think they're responsible for that. Yes, best possible outcome. All right, so I'm gonna start doing the fleet admin, but I'm gonna cut this episode off here. So until I get a good sign off,